frequency ranges. A localizer. So, talk about localizer. Let's go around. There's my runway. I'm going to approach from this side. So my aerial, which gives me left and right indications, sits at the end. And you might remember this is the one I said was an aerial that was like that. The Yagi aerial, that's the actual transmitter bit, that's a reflector, and those are directors. So it's made up of a whole series of those aerials, is this particular one. So that's known as the localizer. Left to right is localizer, and that's the localizer aerial. And here we have the glide slope. So that is going to give you the go up and go down information. So two areas. So the localizer, this one, is VHF. You might remember 108 to 112. Shared with VORs. So ILS has the odd numbers. The glide path, this bit, is UHF. Those are the frequencies attached to it. Theoretically, you could be asked those frequencies because they are there in objectives, but tend not to be asked. So you're hedging your bet remembering numbers, and I struggle with numbers, so I go, okay, well I'm not going to bother remembering them because I struggle with other numbers. You don't know what this is because the frequency you dial up is the 108 to 112. The equipment behind the scenes dials up the UHF frequency. So you never know what they are. They're paired, and they're paired with VORs too. And DMEs. So if you dial up the ILS and there is an associated DME, then that will be dialed up as well, depending upon the age of your aircraft.
John, what's the NDME?
Narrow spectrum. It's I look at that as DME normal actually, but narrow spectrum is what it means. And we'll be looking at DMEs later, so frequencies will come up for that when we do DME. And we also have marker beacons. Every marker beacon in the world transmits on 75 megahertz. They like asking questions about marker beacons, and you'll see why as we go through this. And oddly enough, there are not many marker beacons left in the world. But they lend themselves well to questions, so yeah, they're abundant. Now then, the marker beacons, everyone transmits on 75 megahertz, but the audible frequencies that you hear are obviously in audible frequencies and with 400, 1300 and 3000. Again, there's a table as we go through, so you can note them all then. Oh. Now, when they first came out, your ILS was presented to you on an instrument like this. Generally known as a zero reader, I believe, because you've got a zero in the middle, and you've got something to give you vertical information, you've got something to give you side lateral information, and that's what you had. And it was a separate instrument. Nowadays, of course, it used to be combined with your attitude indicator, and very much on you go glass cockpits, and it's combined into your horizontal situation. So it depends what level of aircraft you're on, but that's pretty much history. But the numbers here are not history. So forget the dots, because you don't know whether it's going to be a 2 dot or a 5 dot. But 2.5 degrees maximum. So it's a quarter scale of what it was before, because it was 10 degrees maximum before, wasn't it? Now it's a quarter of that. And the good thing for you, 0.25 is a quarter. So you've got the same numbers, decimal place, different place, but you've still got the same numbers. The glide path, which you didn't have before, but it's got a maximum deflection of 0.7, and those are the two numbers I would suggest that you remember, those two, because you don't know what instrument your question is going to relate to. So why remember too many numbers? Just those two, and then you can work them out yourself. So that is a picture of a localizer aerial. So you can see more or less what looks like a continuous white bar through there. That is those series of Yagi aerials. They're actually separate aerials if you get to look at them close up. The big red screen behind is a directional screen to try and focus everything in the right direction, although some side lobes do come backwards through there. And notice that we now have 300 meters in there, and we have 300 meters in there, and we have, well, it depends which, I should have, 300 meters, should put that there to show that distance, and that distance there. Never remember the numbers. 20. Don't like the numbers. Numbers are easy questions to ask. So, if we were to look at the glide slope, what is produced is two beams. And we need to remember the colours of these beams because there's the convention that goes with it. So we've got two beams, left lobe and a right lobe. Imagine you're going down the glide slope into the airfield, which is up here. And they are modulated differently. This one's modulated at 90 Hertz, so don't forget it's a VHF frequency, but it's modulated at 90 Hertz. This one's modulated at 150 Hertz. You need to remember which is on which side. Is everyone right-handed? No? Yes? If you're going shopping and you've got two bags, the one that weighs 150 kilograms is going to be in your right hand. Is it not? So that's the one that sits on the right hand side, the heavy one. So your airplane is sensing these two beams, and it's sensing what they call is the difference in depth of modulation. Is the sort of key phrase is this. It works by difference in depth of modulation, and in sensing that, it will go, I'm out to the right, I actually need to come in. So it's working in a very different way to the on-bearing selector. Oh, sorry, it moves across, I forgot about that. So the aeroplane is moving across and the indicator has come in. It's now on the centre line, so the deviation is in line. Guy's gone through, so it's out to the right. So you're out to the left, and this is just like the old deviation indicator. It's saying you that is where the track is. And that is where the track is, out to your right. We've also got a vertical indication on the side here, so that's your glide slope indicator. Plan view. Christmas tree. This is the ranges in which you can use this information that you're getting. So we're talking about out to 25 nautical miles, 10 degrees, 17 nautical miles, 35 degrees either side, so 70 degrees in total. They love the numbers. ILS is a favourite for these exams because there's just so many numbers. Glide path, same sort of idea. That's the ideal slope. Aircraft is above there, so it's showing you that's you. The glide slope is below you. If you go down halfway, then the glide slope is there. You're on, going below, and below. Plan view of this, much smaller. Notice it's 8 degrees out to 10 nautical miles. That's the limitation of this. And you might think, well, that's not very good. But the way we attack ILS is that we always get on the localizer first. And there's a reason for this, which will become apparent. But we always go onto the localizer first. Therefore, you are already going to be on that line by the time you reach this, so it works.
The last picture, the beam should start from the side of the runway.
Don't worry about the picture. I think there's a runway. There's actually a runway here. But this beam, of course, should be there, shouldn't it? If we look on the side view, then the numbers thing's a little bit more difficult because depending upon where you are, we have different glide slope angles. The standard glide slope descends at 3 degrees. That would be the normal. If you go to some military bases, because fast jets are rather slippery, they can't struggle to descend on a higher steep glide slope, so they have a glide slope of 2.5 degrees. You go to London City, that's almost 6 degrees, because you've got to get in over the building. So there are different slopes. So we have to come up with a different way of describing what the top of the beam is and what the bottom of the beam is. The way they've done it is to go, okay, call the glide path theta. Then the top of the glide slope is 1.75 theta. The bottom starts from the ground at 0.5 theta.
It's not symmetrical.
No, it's not, because you've got to keep away from the ground. You don't mind you being above, but it's dangerous to be below. Now then, we've still got the same idea with modulations. We've still got the 90 hertz and the 150 hertz. The lucky thing for us is that the heavy one sinks to the bottom. So we're okay. We still have to remember the 90, 150, but really it's easy to remember which one is which. And of course the question master likes to ask which one is which. So there we are, true one coming down there, so you would aim to go down there. Now the problem is we have side loads. We've always, right from the beginning, we spoke that side loads happen whenever we make a directional transmission. So there will be another side lobe at 150. So there's the 150. Maybe arguably could put this in the blue as well. But it's another one there which creates another slope. Now there's a couple of things wrong with this slope. What are they? One is it's too steep. There's also something else wrong with it.
It's like reverse logic.
It is reverse logic. The heavy one is on the top. So if you try to follow this, fly up indication would actually be requesting you to fly down. It would be working in the opposite sense because it's upside down. So we don't want to intercept that glide slope. Now there will be more than that one because there are other side lobes coming up. That was just the first one. There will be a second one. And that will occur at twice whatever that angle is. So if this is a 3-degree glide slope, then that will occur at 6 degrees. If it's a 3.5-degree glide slope, that will occur at 7 degrees. Now the danger of intercepting the false glide slope is apparent. And that is why all approaches are designed such that you intercept from underneath. So you get the localizer, you're on the localizer, and you'll be flying in underneath here, flying along, level, and the glide slope will come down to meet you. You're always getting the true glide slope. Now, when ILSs first came out in the 60s, we didn't have sophisticated navigation systems. But we still are loath to put all of our faith into a single source of information. Because we never do that, do we? We've always got a story, and we're looking for different bits of this story to all tell the same thing. And as soon as something is different, we don't disregard it and go, that's rubbish. What we actually do is go, what's going on here? We want to know why it's different. Because it could be a good clue to us that there's something wrong with the whole picture. When ILSs came out, all this other information wasn't available, so they had to come up with a means to give the pilot confidence that the ILS glide slope was actually working, and it was working properly. So these markers are what they devised to give the pilot that confidence. So they're put at certain positions. Now you can see it's 4 or 5 miles, quarter of a half a mile difference, and that has to be because the airfields and the ILSs were constructed after villages and towns. So we have to put the aerials where we can help them. So on your approach chart, it will tell you if there are markers. I'll tell you there are hardly any markers, but on your approach chart it will tell you where the markers are. So, and what height. So you can go, alright, I'm at this height, this marker is saying it's coming at the right height, therefore I've got some confidence in the glide slope. This one would normally be situated somewhere around the point where you are meeting the glide slope. It's about the point where flying along, you're going to put the extra bit of flap down, and then you're going to start descending. This one is going to be situated pretty close to your decision point. And this one is telling you you're about to hit the ground. So you got the three. Two of them are very functional, and the other one is, from a safety point of view, the other one is saying you're about to land. And of course, you should be visual by then anyway.
The missed approach point is just before.
Well, you've got a decision height, haven't you, with an ILS, so or altitude, whichever you're going to use, and that's going to be then obviously the point at which you commence your go around.
So you said for the first force glide slope, it's at about 6 degrees.
It's twice whatever the glide slope is. So if it's a 3-degree glide slope, yes, it will be 6 degrees. If you've got a 3.5-degree glide slope, it will be 7 degrees, 2 times 2.
And then the next one is
The next one would be add another one, whatever your slope was. So normally you'd say 9 degrees and 12. So marker beacons, and you'll see why the examiners love this, because there's a lovely little table and it really lends itself to questions, and they're easy to write and you can't contest them. But whoever designed it, I think, was on your side, because there is an element of logic to all of them if you start to think emotionally rather than logically. So we've got our markers, outer, middle and inner. Think about the emotions attached to colours. Blue is very calm. Amber, a little bit warmer. White, hot. Really hot. Anxious. So, sequence, you can see perhaps a rising anxiety. Colour, the frequencies, the audible frequencies. A low frequency, and then a higher one, and an even higher one. Our voices tend to rise in pitch as we become more anxious. So, starting off nice and calm because I'm not scared, and then slowly, oh dear. So we get that concept, it works, and same with the Morse code. Dashes, the slowest of the Morse code, and then a dash, dot, dash. A bit faster, then beep, faster still. So this fits in with the story. So it's actually very easy to remember. Then there's another bit that they love. Categories. So the original ILS was just... Did we get too cold in here? Pardon?
Never been cold in here.
Hot again, I'm really dying. You don't want me taking my shirt off, I'm sure. So the original ILS didn't have a name, but as the other ILSs came along, then it had to have been renamed, so it then became the Cat 1 ILS. So the standard ILS, Cat 1 ILS, has got a decision height of 200 feet. Barometric is the information that you're using, and you do need to have an RVR of 550 in order to commence the approach. So if the RVR is less than that, then you're not entitled to make an approach. Why do we have that funny rule? Why does RVR matter? Anyone?
So you can stop, you can see the end of the room.
coming down there, that range down to the ground is actually potentially quite small, and you might be flying down the slope and going, I can see, bollocks to them, I can see well enough to land, and you make this decision to land. Once you get into this layer and you're starting to round out, of course you're now looking through that length, and then you can't see. So that's why we have this minimum of, you've got to have that visibility, because your confidence would make you think, oh yeah, I can see, and then suddenly it's all gone. And I've been in that situation, landing in Keflavik once, in a snowstorm came, and we weren't told the change in visibilities. Everything looked fine until we came to round out, and then everything disappeared. We couldn't even see the runway. And it's not nice. So that's why we have that. Okay, so we go on to the later ILSs. Cat 2, we can go down to 100 feet. The capability of the equipment is to 50, but we go down to 100. Notice this time we're talking about radio altitude, because we've switched over, haven't we, from barometric altitude to radio altitude, and there was a protection area, wasn't there? Remember that? We spoke about it in law. So in front of the runway, out here somewhere, we've got to prepare that area such that it's level in order for the radio altimeter to function correctly. And again, we've got a reduced RVR. How can we manage with this reduced RVR? I mean, it's not fair, is it? You've got one there and you've got a different one there. What's different? I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about you seeing, because the big problem was actually you getting into this region, wasn't it? Something's changed. The lighting has changed, hasn't it? Because when you're on a Cat 1 ILS, you've got runway edge lights. When you go onto the Cat 2 and 3 ILSs, you've got runway centerline lights, and near the threshold, you've got piles of bright white lights saying, come here, which you just don't have on the Cat 1. So we can afford to reduce it. And then, of course, we've gone on to Cat 3, and they've broken the Cat 3 down into 3 different bits. The similarity for them all, though, is they all take you down to the ground. The difference is what RVR are you allowed to use.
So RVR 0 means that we're okay not seeing anything?
Well, yes.
But it's not scary like you said?
Can we currently use it down to that limit? No. So they're working ahead of saying there. But don't forget, Cat 3C goes from 75 metres down to 0. So it could be 74 metres, for instance.
Could be 1.
It could be 1, but if 74 metres, then you could see. 1, you couldn't, clearly. This to go down to use this to its full extent will need further development to enable you to track probably a beam or something like that. Currently, I don't like quick questions.
That table's different to the one
In
air
ops.
law.
Yes.
But is that just because the air law is the RPA, whereas this is
It's the ops one that's, I think, is different.
I've got the air law on here as well. It's just slightly
Okay,
different.
whichever one it is, I thought it was ops, but one's ICAO, one's yes.
And there we go.
Yeah, we used to say ICAO and J, but yeah, they're different systems, so it's annoying, isn't it, that you've got two things
I
to
remember
remember.
I think I remember one, but obviously the values on that are
Yeah.
different. So.
If I remember rightly, it's only that one, isn't it?
No,
I don't do the other subjects.
in air law, Cat 2 ground installations.
So it's that one.
Decision height's 100 and RVR is 350. there are two, but you're right, they're two different laws.
John, what height is RBR Megatron? Is it 15 feet?
Got me now.
The reason I
I'm
asked
just
is
trying to think about how those, they're about that height, aren't they, those things that do it? I don't know.
I think you said it met books somewhere, isn't it?
That was
Yeah, it will be in Met.
a question. Yeah.
But obviously, different cockpits are at
Yes,
heights, aren't they? And I guess that's where you're coming from with that. Who or what flies this?
General.
Pardon? Yeah, well, who or what? The pilot can fly this, or might be autopilot, but these coming down here are flown by the autopilot. There is such a thing as a back course ILS. They don't exist within the EU, so that's an important bit there to grab there. They don't exist, so you're not required to know how to do one. It is a non-precision approach, because for a precision approach we need guidance side to side and we need guidance up and down. This only gives us guidance side to side, so it is a non-precision approach, and obviously the height at which we have to cut away from that is going to be higher up further back, because the guidance is not as good. It's a non-precision approach because there's no glide path information. The big thing is you've got to be very, very careful in how you set this up, because the lobes are on the wrong side and the indications would be the wrong way around.
And the color is the same, but
It's the way it's being done, but they are on the other sides. Your company, if you are allowed to use these, your company will have a way in which they want you to set this up. So don't even try to think about how it's going to be done, because there are ways of doing it. Why do they exist? The UK and the EU, they don't exist. On the eastern seaboard of the States, they do exist. And there's a very good reason for that. Because we've got land and we've got sea. Standard direction of wind in the northern hemisphere. Wind is normally in that direction. So nearly all approaches to a runway, the runway is going to be aligned like that, you're nearly always going to come in that direction, aren't you? Now then, there will be days when the wind is in the other direction. Particularly in winter. I've got winter time, I've got a sea, and I've got land. Very cold land, relatively warm sea, wind direction changes in that direction. What do I get? Fog. So the time that I need the ILS is actually when the wind is in that direction. So the ILSs are built so that they work in that direction, because that's the time you're actually going to need them. The only problem is that's 4 or 5 days a year. So they like to use the back course because, generally speaking, you're going to fly in from that direction by the wind, and you want to use some guidance, so they do it. So
How come we don't use that here then?
Pardon?
There's quite a
Because we tend not to have. We're not on the eastern side. We're on the other side of the western side of the continent, so that problem doesn't really occur. Yes, we get fog, but it's different. But there is a risk associated with them because of the wrong indications.
on the ground that change the direction of the beams.
Pardon?
Usually the beams are directed to the final approach, so you have to turn them to the other.
No, they don't turn the beams. You're just using the back beam. You're using a side lobe. Remember side lobes? I said there's lots of them. Some going backwards, and that's what you're using. Sorry, who's talking? Oh. Well, it depends how you set your thing up, because you can still set it up. You can still set it up to read correctly. But I want to stop there because it's not in your exams, and they're not allowed in you. So it sort of finishes there. Now we've got some calculations to do. You can see what ILS loves it. It lends itself to examination questions so much. So we need to calculate the rate of descent. And the reason we're interested in this is we've got a glide slope. You're coming into it. If you can guess quite accurately what the required rate of descent will be, as the glide slope comes to meet you, you can make your turn and come onto it and join it really well. And that sets you up for a good approach. Or, if you don't do that, you're going to end up doing this. And then, of course, you're struggling to get on the glide slope all the way down. So you're encouraged to anticipate what the rate of descent would be. Now, in practical terms, I know that you're flying the same aeroplane, commercial world, you're flying the same aeroplane all the time. So you've got generally a more or less set approach speed. So you've got more or less the same rate of descent. And if you've got a headwind, you're going to increase a little bit. If you've got a less of a headwind then, or slight tailwind, you're going to decrease a little bit. And you're going to add a bit, take a little bit off. The examiners are not happy with that. They're saying you can be more precise than that. So, the rate of descent in feet per minute is 5 times your ground speed. So, if you're on a 3-degree glide slope, ground speed of 140 knots, 5 times 140 is 700 feet a minute. So you go, no wind, and that's the speed, then you go, okay, I'll come onto the glide slope and I'll set up a descent of 700 feet a minute, and hopefully I'll get straight onto the glide slope, and down I go. That's great. But the examiner is not happy with you remembering that easily. They're going, yeah, but it might not be a 3-degree glide slope. So what you need to do is take the glide path angle and divide it by 3. So you're just making a fraction of whatever it is to 3. So in this case then 3.5 degrees would be 5 times 140 over 3.5 divided by 3. Now this is way beyond most people's mental arithmetic, is it not? So it's totally impractical. But it is asked. It's all very well with older airplanes that have a navigator, because that would then be a job given to the navigator. So we'd end up with a rate of descent of 817. You can do this on your wristwatch. So if you take the 60, which is basically your ratiometer for hours and minutes and everything, stick that onto the glide slope angle, and then you've got the ground speed on the inner side and your rate of descent on the outer side.
They don't do percentages for this, is that? Do they? By 5%.
Not that I know of. Doesn't mean that they won't. Because we generally talk about glide slopes, you know, in degrees. And you know, how much did you pay for your whiz wheels? Too much. Get your money's worth. Get your money's worth. I'm surprised you don't take them shopping in the end. Now then, the examiner, not happy with that, has gone, well, you might make your calculation, and then air traffic say, oh, the wind has changed. So now this is about modifying the calculation. Change. So change of rate of descent. So we know that is 5 times the change in ground speed. So what is the correction to the rate of descent on a 3-degree glide slope, showing 150 knots to 120? You've made a change of minus 30. No, 150, but it's a minus 150, so you're going to take 150 off whatever you came up with first. Are you okay with that? A long time ago, there was decided that ILS could be interfered by FM radios because, as you can see there, Oxford, Radio Jackie 107.8, really close to 108. So there's the chance that that signal could be interfered with. So they came up with a program of FM immunity. And there was a mad scrabble suddenly, because you could assess, find out whether your aeroplane had it, and if it didn't, then you were screwed for using the ILS on wherever you were going to think about someone else. It didn't last long, and it was a long time ago now. Scalloping, rapid indications, side to side, and clearly rapid indications you couldn't follow because everybody would be sick. However, an alternative would be a beam bend, in which case that is a gentle one bend in there, and clearly you could follow that. You might not even notice it other than your heading change. So a slight curve can be followed even by larger. That's ILS complete. Any questions?
We got the wrong calculation when it was that wide angle, the difference to 3 degrees. Could you just
Go back.
thanks.
Which, that one?
No, the one that's the 3.5 degree one, so that one.
So what you're doing is you just got the new one over the old one. So if you think about it, a steep angle is going to need a quicker approach. So you're looking for a bigger number if you're trying to remember which way up that needs to go.
On the ILS, hold short, basically. If the plane crosses it, it will interfere with ILS signals.
It can do, which is
Yeah,
why
it's-
we had the ILS sensitive area. Remember I showed that on the board the other day? I said, there's your runway, there's the glide slope, taxiways normally go in something like that. That area there would be protected, so a holding point brings you back here. So all you do is quite quickly transit through. So no parking. That's ILS is complete. And I'm looking at the time, it's not really worth starting something else.